Hey guys, welcome back. We are continuing our character creation segment for InnRoads Plays Victoriana. When last we left, we had just finished taking a look at the background for Heather's character, Miranda Russell. Equal parts awesome and mysterious. But we're gonna go ahead and move on with the last two here with Alyssa and Mike and take a look at what kind of backgrounds they wanted to choose for their characters. So let's go with Alyssa.
All right. Well, for character creation, I already had in mind before I looked at the text. The text. I really wanted to play a spiritualist, and I wasn't sure how that was going to work in the system. I was like, oh, is that? And then I looked at the book, and oh, yeah, spiritualist is one of the.
It's actually one of the written ones.
There.
Yeah.
So I did go right away. Pick spiritualist as my vocation, and it's kind of interesting because. Traditional Victorian spiritualism was basically hoaxes and smoke and mirrors in the very literal sense of the phrase.
Yep.
But there is actual spiritualism as magic in the world of Victoriana. But there are also phony spiritualists as well, mixing it with the real ones. So what I thought would be interesting, we'll actually get more into it in attributes and stuff, but mine's a phony who uses actual magic that isn't spiritualism for tricks. So he's middle class as a result. He kind of mixes with the upper class as part of his job, and lower as part of his just childhood experience background. It's stuff that'll be in backstory. But his childhood was basically boarding school, hard knocks, figuring out how to get away with things behind people's backs. So it kind of sums up what he'll be doing.
Very cool. All right, so you picked up vocation spiritualist and then the childhood experience. That's awesome. Very cool. And then obviously, like you said, more will come out in gameplay. So another mystery, an enigma, if you will. All right. Now we're going.
She drew quite a fine picture of her character as well.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yes,
That's
she did. Yeah.
He has this like sly grin on his face, like there's a joke that only he's in on.
That's right. You thought I was joking. I did put into our little messenger chat that I had a job opportunity for you, and that may resolve if you're up for the challenge. I'll have you doing some drawings for the game. Excellent.
I definitely want to doodle all your guys, of course. So,
Yes. So
Yay.
we will make
You can
that
be
happen.
excited soon.
Very cool. All right, Mr. Perna.
I am playing Dov Polzin, the Russian bearman. And yes, I could not make a Russian bear and not have him be part of the circus. However, Dov's experience with the circus was not a pleasant one. Basically, the reason I kind of patchworked his vocation was because they had beggar and they had shop owner. None of these had any kind of overlap, but that's pretty much Dov's story. As a kid, his mother passed away. His father basically was a very cold man and a drunk, and he basically sold Dove into slavery to pay off his debts.
Ooh. Yeah, the year award.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
keeping in the definition of the world, was your parents also beastmen?
Father was, mother wasn't, because one thing that they make very clear in the lore of Victoriana is that female beastmen are exceptionally rare.
Yeah.
They happen, but it's once in a blue moon.
Yeah. I thought that was an interesting tidbit. I wanted to get that mentioned. Okay.
Yeah. So my dad was, and the other interesting thing about beastmen is that you don't have to be of the same breed. Like
You can have a lion father and then a bear son.
right, but I do think Dove's father was a bear man. But here's also the thing: if you really look into the Russian, I actually looked up like some Russian surnames and everything for their meaning, and I figured out that Dove actually means bear, and Poltson is a name given to merchants. The reason for that is not just me being like, huh. It's actually because Dove Poltson is not his real name. The reason being The reason being because he escaped from the circus. I actually gave you guys a bit of a story, our viewing audience throughout the course of gameplay, but it referenced a dwarf assistant named Anastasi. Anastasi is actually the guy who broke Dove out of the circus. Dove's job was basically they treated him like a trained animal. He was there to fight, and yeah, it was not a pleasant stay. These were not people that treated him well. He ended up learning how to be a blacksmith and a mechanic from Anastasi, but he took to it so well that he actually ended up catching the eye of a nobleman in London who saw his work and immediately started buying up his work, which let him get his shop, which, again, bearmen and beastmen in general are supposed to be lower class, but because this nobleman actually took favor on him, it kind of bolstered him up. Dove actually also has a story of being a local hero, which is one of the privileges he picked, because there was a gang that kind of owned the docks and owned the supply chains, so they were pretty much extorting all the local merchants, and Dove basically took it upon himself to rid the docks of that pestilence, took down the bulk of the gang, sent the others running. It almost killed him, but after a while he was able to recuperate most of his wounds. He did lose an eye in that fight, but he came back and found out that all the local merchants they actually had little carved statues of a bear man with a sledgehammer, kind of in respect for what Dove did for them. And so now he runs a blacksmith shop. He actually lives over the shop, but he runs a blacksmith shop on the Blackfriars Road. It's called the Iron Ursus, and that's kind of where he is right now.
Nice. Now, part of your character, though, like with respect to like what was available for backgrounds, you had to actually come up with something specific.
Yeah,
so, like,
there was.
Go ahead.
There was nothing that encapsulated who Dove was.
Right. So I think you went with a circus performer, and then what was the?
He has a little bit of entertainer, a little bit of beggar, and a little bit of shop owner.
There you go. So yeah, and that's one of the cool things about Victoriana is that anything from associations to some of these other packages, these build packages, you can kind of mix and match, give it kind of the relative same kind of, I guess for lack of a better phrase, like power, I guess would be a good way to describe it. And you can start kind of creating something that's definitely totally your own. So kind of like what Mike did. So cool. Great job, you guys. I got a whole bunch of notes out of that, and I'll be listening to the recording again later. That's one of the great things about recording, guys. If you get a chance to, do it in your groups, because then you can go back and keep your players honest. Trying to cheat the poor DM and stuff. It's terrible. Okay, so we talked a little bit about backgrounds. And I'll kind of scroll back up here for the purposes of the audience to take a look at that list again of what you can do. So you look at your backgrounds that handles vocation and childhood experiences. Then we start talking about breeding as far as what your social class is. And we've kind of gone through that, I think, with each person, ranging from upper class to middle class, and then also the social anomaly that is Dove. So I think we have upperclassmen, we have middle class, and then do we have any lower class? I don't think so.
I don't think we have any lower.
Everybody's middle. Okay, perfect. And within the game, one of the things that I mentioned in the creation of your character is that the middle class is kind of the easiest one to work with because you're only one step away from the class below you or the class above you. But that introduces its own level of difficulties when you're interacting with people. So, like, for instance,
Well,
if you're going to be doing oh, go ahead.
I can say Dove has social anomaly, which means he's technically middle class.
Right.
However, if people don't know that,
Hmm.
it's very likely that an upper class person will treat Dove like he's lower class.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Just by the fact that on site he's just another beast man.
right. So definitely something to
All right,
take
and
into account. Oh, go ahead.
yes, similar situation with Miranda because middle class, based on her father and even actually her mother, but actually because she's Chinese, she's going to be totally an outsider, not necessarily a low class, but not even well accepted within the middle class.
It's almost like a class unto yourself. How
Exactly.
you're going to deal with that.
The
So,
other.
yeah, so that'll kind of make for an interesting interplay. Great. All right. Great job, everybody. So, all right. So the next few elements are kind of tried and true stuff. We can take a look at some build packages, which is kind of an optional item here. That's within step 4. So let's kind of take a quick look at that. I'm pretty sure everybody kind of avoided the straight up build package as it is listed. But just for the purposes of folks out there, when you're going in and you're selecting the particular class that you're part of, and you're seeing that on the screen right now, you have your upper class, your middle class, your lower class. They have build packages built in here to where you can kind of, these are, again, just like with the beginnings with associates or associations, you have a certain set of skills that really lend itself towards that association or lends itself to that particular vocation that you've chosen. So, and we'll just use one quick example here for an upper class person who has chosen a build package of country squire. Basically means that you've been given a plot of land that's somewhere out in the English countryside, and you become the most important person in that area, or you're just plain flat out the wealthiest person in the area. The country folk have kind of adopted you as their, what they say here, their local gentleman. So out of that, you get some access to talents, particular privileges, assets, and then what we were just mentioning before, complications of how that can influence you. Nate's character has the sins of the father as a complication. But we'll run into those a little bit later here. So build packages definitely available. If it's something that you want to go with as a particular creation of your own, you can do that as well. Let's see here. So let us go here to, we've talked about races, and we have the beastmen, we have dwarfs, we have eldrin, which are basically elves, humans, gnomes, and huldu folk, basically like halflings. And they have their own benefits based on physical attribute modifications, strength and skills, that sort of thing. And then, as we kind of continue to scroll down here, we get to yield attributes. So something we're kind of traditional with here, as far as a lot of role-playing games. They have your attributes that basically set up the kind of person that you are, and it's a really broad stroke view of who that person is. And so you have, within Victoriana, you have your 3 physical attributes, which are strength, dexterity, and fortitude. And then your 3 mental ones, which are presence, wits, and resolve. So those are kind of a little bit different than what I was used to as far as coming from a background like Pathfinder or Shadowrun, that kind of thing. So I thought those were kind of an interesting implementation here. So I think what we'll do maybe in the, just kind of going around the table real super quick, is just kind of walk through what your vision of your character is, and then how that shook out into your attributes as far as what that background and everything has brought itself out to physically and mentally in your character. So I guess not necessarily having to go through all the numbers, but where's your strong suit, and then where's your weakness when it comes to your character? And if you don't want to share that, by no means don't feel like you need to, in case you want to have it as a secret later on in the game. So so we'll do the round robin here real quick again. We'll start off with Mr. Nate.
All right.
Or Lieutenant Blackwell.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know it. All right. So the lieutenant is definitely a fighter. He grew up at a boarding school where the kids kind of picked on him, so he had to develop the fisticuffs. and just coming from the family that he came from, he had, he has a natural innate athletic ability and agile. He great with firearms, swords, any kind of weapon. He's really well suited to that. He has a good presence, he's a little bit intimidating. He's as personality-wise, he's a little brash, a little cocky, but that's just masking insecurity, really. So, yeah.
That's cool.
I think that's about it, high level.
All right, awesome. And then that kind of builds into skills as well. And if you guys want to kind of talk a little bit about your skills as well, that's great too, because it kind of stems from the attributes that you've chosen as your strong suit or your weak point. All right, let's go to the good Dr. Lum.
For Dr. Lum, again, that sort of professor challenger sort of thing where I want him to be really smart and really stubborn and have a great presence and a great strength and pretty much just awesome at everything. And that doesn't really work numerically.
Yeah.
And so what I compromised on was kind of the strength and the dexterity. So, and it makes sense that somebody who is really dedicated to academia and spends a lot of time in the library and the research laboratory probably isn't going to be the strongest or most nimble of dwarves.
Right.
And so I really, and like I said, I wanted to make him just as smart as I possibly could. So I really bumped up his wits. And then it kind of came down between his presence or his resolve. And resolve really was the better characteristic. I wanted him to be really stubborn, really dedicated, really single-minded in whatever it is that he was doing. And so those are definitely the ones that I increased the most. He has a fairly decent fortitude just from being a dwarf. So he's not a shrinking violet, but he's definitely not strong or nimble. He won't be doing any acrobatics voluntarily. And then when
The jumping dwarf of London.
yeah, none of that. He's way done with books. and then some of the skills I went with again are things that were towards that, and so a lot of presence-based skills and a lot of resolve-based skills and wits-based skills. So general knowledge, science, all that kind of stuff. But eventually he had to be good at fighting somehow, and I decided that would be swordplay and throwing. So even though his dexterity is a 0, I did put enough points into those that hopefully he would be able to at least defend himself. And I did those because they were the most, I figured they would be the ones that would most benefit from a knowledge of anatomy. And so if he has a sword and he knows that if he chops you across this particular artery, that's going to be the thing that's going to be the most effective.
I like it.
It's at this point that I remind us all that they have a good feeling that Jack the Ripper was probably a surgeon.
Yeah. You can stand up, hold your sword up, and just say, "I'm literally a surgeon with this." Literally.
Science requires experimentation.
There you go. That's your motto. Write it down. That's awesome.
Oh my god. Love it.
And you know what? And again, the mixture of attributes and skills here is really great. It's something I haven't seen in other systems outside of, like, say, Burning Wheel or something, where it puts together really what, and I know we do it in D&D, we do it in Pathfinder, that sort of thing, but the way they mix the attributes and the skills here is really great. I've mentioned, I think at the onset when we were just getting together, that you can actually switch out attributes with a particular skill. Like, for instance, if Dr. Lum wanted to intimidate somebody with a flourish of his blade, he could mix his sword skill with, let's say, his presence and say, "Oh, I'm going to intimidate this guy to get the heck out of here." And if it doesn't work, then I'll switch presence out for dexterity or whatever and cut him up. So there you go. Very cool. Very cool. All right, cool. Let's move over to Miss Heather, Miranda Russell.
All right. So Miranda is very opposite of Lieutenant Blackwell's description. Almost everything he was saying, I'm thinking she's the opposite of that. She is kind of a small person, not particularly strong. Everything with her character is toward her wits and her resolve. She has no real presence. She's kind of the person that would blend in a crowd if she didn't stick out visually. But she's not a very forward, in-your-face kind of person. the way she deals with things is using her brain and thinking situations through and using her very widely varied knowledge, which brings me to skills. I had a very hard time narrowing down the appropriate skills for her. When I first came up with the list, it was far longer than any of the spaces on the sheet. And I had 1 point here, 1 point there. So I kept trying to narrow it down to make it not quite so varied. I wanted to give her some legitimate abilities more than a point or two.
Right.
So what I will say is that because of where she grew up and because of the education that she has, the thing that she excels at the most is a skill in language. She is multilingual, speaks quite a few languages, and understands the nuances of each of those. That's kind of a part of her culture and her background and her upbringing.
Right.
So I'll leave it at that.
For funsies, is Russian one of the languages she speaks?
Why, yes, it is.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Again, another connection.
It's already on the list.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
And I will say, Mike, she actually has traveled somewhat in Russia.
Ah, there we go. And I know where. I'll know where. Just from history, I can guess where you went. All right. GM secrets, yay! All right, cool. All set, Heather? That's good?
That's it.
All right.
That's it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Miss Alyssa, let's go with you.
All right. So for Joy, I definitely wanted to go more mental skills. He's got a boost to all the presence, wits, and resolve. So those are basically all things he'd be using. He's not very physical, although he does have a boost to dexterity. The dexterity, though, that's mainly for sleight of hand. That's his one really major physical skill is that kind of deftness. And which also it was kind of funny that I noticed fisticuffs was a dexterity skill.
Yeah.
So I gave him a point in that because I figure if things go badly for him, probably the best thing to know is whose face to put a fist in and how fast he can get out after that.
And speaking of fisticuffs, if you read the description, this just made me laugh so much. It's any unarmed fighting, including a woman slapping a man. I was like, that's just hilarious.
They actually,
for being insolent.
I didn't check this, Jeff, so check me in 3rd edition if this is true. In 2nd edition, there was actually a mechanic that separated punching versus an open hand slap. There was actually a mechanical difference.
In here that works against whether it's a stun or it's an actual wound, that kind of thing. So
the idea was that you just smack them and they become so shocked that you did that to them that their action is stopped.
See, that would be
That happens.
That's right. That's right. So when Lieutenant Blackwell comes in and takes off his glove and just wham. So that's fisticuffs.
Yes.
Yep.
That's fisticuffs plus.
I think the lieutenant's getting
plus.
slapped more often than he's doing the slapping.
Ah,
I'm sure he is.
But yeah,
Love it.
For me, it's kind of just a broad range of presence, wits, and resolve because most of his skills are spread out through those.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Our Russian bearman. So I didn't even do a Russian accent properly.
Yeah.
In Soviet Russia, everybody speaks with Irish accent. All right, sorry. Hey,
Just
come
wait
on!
until
I'm old enough to know who Yakov Smirnov is. So
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Just wait until I start breaking out my terrible French accents because
I'm so looking forward to it.
this is not a spoiler because Monsieur Joyeux is not his actual name. His name's Ambrose Joyner, and he's pretending to be a Frenchman because he thinks it'll sell his mysticism better.
I think we should do this.
French accents
I
constantly.
think we should do this. We should have in the comments. You guys can put different horrible pronunciations.
Oh yeah.
Yes, please, guys, do that. That is so awesome. Yes.
Because before we started this, we all decided for her that Alyssa's character will always pronounce the name differently every time he says it.
Yes. And then very early on, I challenged you to speak in a British accent, faking a French accent. So we're gonna have to go with that.
Not sure I'll be able to manage, but I will try my best.
It can only be better if you fail.
That's exactly right. That's totally
True.
right.
True.
That's totally right.
But
All right, Mr.
Going
Bearman.
back to where we were,
Oh,
Dove is literally a jack of all trades. His just being a 7 foot tall, 500-pound bearman. He does have extra points in strength, fortitude, and presence. Now, presence is partly charm and charisma, but it's also just your physical presence. Like when you walk into a room, everyone sees you.
Yeah.
So those were his big things, because obviously but also just the shopkeeper aspect and the fact that everyone in his part of town knows him. You can't walk up and down Blackfriars without having somebody tell you about Dove. So so that is most of his stuff. He does have points and everything else, but he has like a point and everything else. So he doesn't have any real weak points, but he doesn't actually have any huge strengths either. He pretty much has taught himself how to do life because no one was teaching him how to do it himself. So he's kind of average with some slight perks in certain things.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So that I just want to play right now. Okay. I know the problem is that it's so late on the East Coast right now that we can't like even dive into the game right at this immediate moment.
It's just past midnight.
Ah, gosh, that is awful. Awful news. Well, okay, so these are kind of like the main things that we've kind of rolled through, and as you guys are looking on the screen, you're kind of seeing some of the the different pages that deal with skills and all sorts of stuff there. Skills can be broken down, just for like kind of our audience's benefit. Skills can be broken down into a couple of levels. One would be common skills. These are kind of the regular stuff that you'd be able to do, whether it's fisticuffs or if it's etiquette, so you're kind of understanding certain social norms. Other common skills can be like riding. You want to be able to ride a horse or drive a carriage, that sort of thing. But then you come into what's called specialty skills. And these are the kinds of things that most likely our fair Dr. Lum, and I'd imagine anybody else here would probably have something as a specialty skill.
I have a fair deal of specialties, yeah.
Yeah, so like what's an example of one that
I.
Yeah, so what's an example? Let's go around the table real quick. We'll start with Mike this time. We'll go back around.
Here, I do want to clarify the difference. Common skills, mechanically.
Yeah.
Common skills, anybody can try them.
Yes.
You're always able to do it. If you're rolling on something that you don't have points in, you can still do it, but you take a penalty to it.
Right.
Specialties, if you don't have it, you don't have it. You can't use it.
Mm-hmm.
So some of Dove's specialties are crafting. He is a blacksmith. He can literally use his blacksmithing. He is a mechanical engineer, so he has the ability to work with various gears and gizmos. Nice. He also has ad hoc repair, so if something breaks, he can fix it without having to go all the way back to the shop. Those are his specialties.
Cool. So so we'll go back to Alyssa. So what's one or two of your specialty skills?
I've got sleight of hand is actually a specialty, as I mentioned it before, but yeah, so I might be able to pull a card out of someone's ear without them noticing, and if anyone else tries, it's probably going to be like, oh, you had that in your sleeve, obviously.
I can see the spring load right there.
But I've also got a couple other like little things like conversation, high society, since his customer base is a lot of upper class, so
nice.
Kind of skills dealing with them.
Very cool. All right, and then Miss Russell.
Miss Russell has some specialties in research, and as a little bit of a hint for what's to come, one of her other specialties is forgery.
Ooh.
The achy part of this is that I know what's happening.
I know, right?
But it's
You
like
know.
I love seeing everybody's faces like, oh, what does that mean? What's that going to turn into?
It's tantalizing things.
It's the joys of GM-hood. Like you can actually look over your notes too. I know for a fact that you know Dove's real name.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
There is power in names, my friend. Oh, very
and
cool.
I'm gonna have to start sharing some of my secrets with you too, so you can plan ahead.
That's right.
There you
That's
go.
right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I will say that I didn't put a large number of points in any of these, except for the languages, which I said before.
Yeah,
I
you're
kind
a
of left a
linguist.
lot, but I did put 2 points toward forgery, so it's important enough for that.
Very cool. Very cool. And that's something with the game too, is that you can quickly become a journeyman in this game and then kind of develop yourself into a particular vein that you want to focus on. So that's definitely an option in this game, because you also have your attributes that come alongside and kind of support those roles too. Very cool. All right, Dr. Lum, you're up next. What's one or two of your specialties?
Definitely medicine and research. And as I've just been listening to people talk, we have 3 characters that are pretty smart cookies.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking that I had some points in lore and general science and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and,
I've got a point or 2 in lore too.
Do you? Yeah. So I'm
Lore
thinking
buddies.
lore buddies. Woohoo! Except I was about to bail on you.
Oh.
I'm just thinking that might be a good idea to think about how these cerebral-based characters are differentiated from each other, and I'm thinking it might make more sense for Dr. Loom to really specialize. It kind of fits with his personality as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about maybe dumping some of those lore points or research points and just really double downing on the medicine or some of the science skills that would go with biology and that sort of thing. So, and then I had also taken like some interrogation and that sort of thing that would go with his overbearing personality. But I think Lieutenant Blackwell might have that sort of thing covered. So I might rework that as well. So
Nice.
I think he's going to be a opposite of Dove, where he's going to be very singular focused on the things that he does, which will be a fairly large area of sciences, but he won't have a whole lot of sense of what to do with that knowledge. And for that, he probably will be relying on the other members of the party who have a little more wisdom rather than just facts at their disposal.
Very cool. Very cool. Oh man, this is so cool. I keep saying it. The word cool keeps flying out of my face, but I can't help
Well,
it.
it
Sorry,
really
guys.
is.
It really is. It just really is. All right, round us out here, Lieutenant Blackwell. What do you got?
All right, so I have a few specialties as well. I have to go back and reread the rule book and see what they actually apply to, because I don't remember off the top of my head what they actually do. But military engineer, I believe, deals with explosives, things like that.
Yes.
Gambling, which is more, I think, than just actually card playing and stuff. It plays in a little bit in other ways as well in certain scenarios. Something called tactics, which I thought sounded cool, but that's the one I'm really having a hard time remembering. I think it's like analyzing a battle or something before you actually get into it.
And it also will apply towards small squad tactics as well. So
right. So,
yeah, definitely a benefit.
Yeah, so a lot of points in that one, and then also horse riding. One of the things with my character is that he's looking to get a bigger commission, and he wants to step up to like a cavalry unit. So he's got the horse skills down pat.
Very cool. So he's active military. I kept mentioning in our little one-off conversations that he was a veteran, but he's a veteran of the Crimean War, but he's still active military. So
Right, on leave or yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Very cool, you guys. All right. So I think this might be kind of a good place to press pause and kind of, because we've kind of worked through the mechanics of it. The rest of it deals a lot with like the as far as those who are focusing on magical stuff.
I think before we should go, I know a couple of us have mentioned it. There is one thing that's kind of interesting, both mechanically and character-wise, that I think we should hit. There's a thing called complications.
Yes, that's kind of where I wanted to round everything out, is in complications.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, because that's an important part. I mean, a lot of the other elements here, you're going to be dealing with, assets. How much money do you have? Privileges, the kinds of things that you have access to. Like if you're part of a club or a certain society, you may have certain privileges that go along with that, like maybe access to a real fancy library. For our lore masters and stuff.
We can even cite ones that I've already brought up. Like I can tell you, shop is an asset. The fact that I own a shop is an asset. The fact that I'm a social anomaly and I'm also a local hero The shop owners all know me.
Right.
Those are privileges. But yeah, one that I didn't mention that I think I really enjoy is I picked up one called the Noble Tinker, because Dove is constantly going to be covered in grease and awful. And normally, if I didn't pick up the Noble Tinker, that's a whole big reason that people would look down on me.
Right.
But everyone just kind of knows, oh, it's because he's working on the next big Uber project for so-and-so. So they
Right.
all kind of just disregard the fact that I'm just a filthy mess.
What's coming out of his shop? I mean, he's a mess. Who cares? But look what he's building.
Right.
Look at this. No, and that's exactly right. So there's certain elements that give advantages to folks. So I think one of them, one was public or a personal tutor was one.
Yes,
I think was
yes.
that you took. So yeah, these are kinds of things that build into the characters, build in for the character's history, and also gives certain elements of benefit out to come out and play. So it will kind of round things up with complications. So a lot of this stuff is kind of built towards, here's my character, here's what he or she can do. I'm a little weak here, I'm strong here, but here's my skills and all this other stuff. But then we get to a thing called complications, which is something that Nate had mentioned at the very beginning of, I think, the last episode, was the sins of the father was like an interesting complication that came up. And these complications, it's you can see it there on the screen, but I love the quote they have at the beginning. It says, "Running out of build points? That's a real shame. But you might be pleased to know that there's a way to get more complication, and that's called complications." So with build points, again, you can purchase, you can add into your attribute numbers, you can add into skills, you can purchase assets or privileges, that sort of thing. But as you're starting to run low, which I know a few of you probably ran into that situation, complications can kind of bring some more points into the pool. But these complications are not something that are just going to be say, like, oh, I've got a hangnail, or I've got a lazy eye, or I can't taste food. It's nothing
I
like
will
that.
tell you. I will tell you that anytime Jeff wants us to perceive something, I won't be participating.
They'll
Or
have
I-
something in
or-
the eye. Hang on.
or I'll be participating, but not very well.
There you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
you mentioned last episode that your character's missing an eye, right? So
He
that
is
actually
missing. He is
is a
missing an eye.
complication.
It is actually a complication. Missing an eye. What happens is I take. We'll get more into the complication, the actual physics of rolling dice and everything for this. But you'll understand it later when I say that I take a 2 black die penalty for all perception rolls involving eyesight because I'm missing an eye.
That's a lot of fun.
I also kind of asked what other things Dove would have to deal with in similar things. The reason why I said I'm not participating in any perception rolling is because I work in a shop that involves a lot of metal hammering, which means
So
that
he's
I'm
half blind and mostly deaf.
What?
hard of hearing. Yes.
Wait, what?
So
I'm sorry, speak up.
I'm
Okay.
half blind and hard of hearing. Basically,
Love it.
it's 2 black dice for if I'm hearing something. It's 2 black dice for if I'm seeing something.
So it's kind of like Monsieur Joyer is like standing there next to Dove, sees something troubling, and says, "Hey, over there, just go straight
Yeah.
and punch as soon as you see something."
And then the third, I did take 3 complications, which I hope I won't totally regret. I won't totally regret. The other one is foreigner.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting turnout,
Because
especially being Russian and Britain.
this is Victorian England,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be very obviously Russian,
Yes.
and it will not bode well. So
It'll be an
not only
interesting-
am I a foreigner, I took the foreigner complication, which means I'm very obviously a foreigner.
Yeah. So I mean, and that kind of builds into what's going to be fun for me as a GM, because there's going to be times when I'm going to need to put that in front of you. So let's say, for instance, not to harp on you, Mike, but let's say the other characters are in the middle of a library researching something. It's really interesting, and they're all engrossed in it. Lieutenant Blackwell is talking with the purveyor of the library because he's kind of the end to it and getting everybody in there to research. And then
That's a dog.
Dove is over there by himself, and he's the only one that's watching the hall. And he's the only one who might have a chance to see the bad guy that's coming down the hall. And I'm going to put you in positions like that because I want to leverage those complications because it's going to be super awesome. But
Well,
it's fun for GMs more than it is for points for you guys. It's more fun for me, I think.
if I was dealing with this on the GM side, I'll give you this one. I'm a giant foreign bearman
Yeah.
who is middle class only by some kind of fluke.
Yeah.
I promise you, we're going to be dealing with upper class people.
Yeah.
And there might be a time when the lieutenant isn't with us. I'm not looking forward to that.
That'll do, Bear. That'll do.
Yeah.
So yeah, complications. So I think kind of in the interest of time, we're kind of running up on that closing hour here. The rest of the stuff that's going to go on in the game, I think, is going to really come out organically as we play. So you guys are going to start seeing some of the things that we talked about here. You're going to start seeing a lot more things, obviously, from our 2 mysterious members. Actually 3, because I know some secrets about you, good doctor. But who, me? But yeah, and I think what's going to be awesome for this broadcast is that you guys are going to be able to see that come out in gameplay, and you're going to be able to see how that works in a gaming group. So what we'll do for our next episode, I think, is to start working on the interconnectivity of the group. We may come across points, and we don't have to. This is just kind of something that might happen in your gaming group. But then we may come across points where we change a little thing here and there about our character. I think Brent already mentioned that to kind of help round out the quote-unquote the trio of lore masters, maybe might gear himself a little bit differently in his skill selection just to kind of help round out the group. That's definitely a possibility because as groups form, let's call it in nature, they kind of naturally gravitate to one another because they help create balance within that union. So I think that's just a natural way of things as the group forms. So our next episode, what we'll do is we'll talk about the Torchbearer Society, and that's going to be the association that we're all going to be involved with. And we're going to work together to kind of flesh that out. I've got some basics that we'll lay out first, and then we'll just kind of blossom from there. And I think that's going to start kind of tweaking our characters just a smidge here and there to kind of fit into that, I don't know, paradigm, I guess is lack of a better word. So I hope you guys will tune in for that next episode. We definitely will look forward to having you. And then after that, it's off to the races. We're going to start our adventure. So definitely tune in. Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions about us and what we do here at InnRoads, go out and visit InnRoadsMinistries.com to learn all about it, or visit us on Facebook. Just search out for Game Store Profits. You can also look for the Tavern. That's where we all hang out. That's actually where most of us met. So very cool stuff. So thanks again. We'll talk to you guys later, and stay out there and roll dice.